here, and I may come in a little bit. Not to say we're not going to adjust it. And we line up with the eye on the other side. And then we're looking to see what proportions this little triangular shape has. Okay, to help us make this thing grow from the way down. If I wanted to, I could almost figure out ahead of time if I had the face, how big the mouth is. If I had the original, I could say, okay, how big do I have to make this mouth? Well, I have the eye. Oh, look, it's the same width, as wide as the eye is. That's how tall it is. But I really don't have a full picture of the girl. We're working with these broken up ones, so it's a little more difficult. So I think you'll see it easier when you're doing your own faces. Also, if you find today that we have a hard time doing teeth, then you pick a mouth that doesn't have teeth. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more. So now let's look at this. What letter does this remind you of? An M. Do you see? I'm not drawing a mouth and I'm not drawing lips, but I know how to draw the letter M. And we're going to look to see how kind of flat it is. Like this is fairly flat in here. So I'm going to come over here, and actually these little points, they line up with the nostrils out here. So I'm going to flatten that out. That's a little bit of information I gave you that I knew from the original photo. And then the angle comes way down, and it goes across a little bit. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and get that angle and across a little bit. Again, just like the eyes, just like the nose, we're looking for angles and shapes. And then I'm going to look at the other side because it's not perfectly symmetrical. I think she happened to be a little bit on an angle, a tad. And you want to make sure, if at all possible, that your paper, that you are straight in front of your paper so that we don't get it turned. I think there were a few hanging on the board that you could actually see that kind of happen. So I'm looking, they look like mountains. Mountains. And then it flattens out here where it meets the face. Do you see that? So I didn't try to draw lips. I looked for shapes that I recognized and that I know how to draw. And are not going to scare me. And then inside the lower part, we've kind of got, it goes across and up, kind of parallel to this, but now it's a little more straight and comes down and across. So here, I'm going to try and get the thickness, but I can always fix it a little later, like this, and this, and this. Make that a little thicker. This goes kind of straight across. At this point, I'm just trying to lay it out. And we want to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want this to look like a woman who got too much fat injected to their lips. Have you ever seen that? You've seen those celebrities that do that. And Angelina Jolie, but some of them, there's an old actress called Linda Evans. She was just a gorgeous woman. And she ended up getting too much in her upper lip. And it defied it defied nature. Nature wants the upper lip to be a little smaller than the lower one. So you can tell she looks funny now and awkward. So we want to make sure that this doesn't look too much on the top. And at this point, I am going to flatten this out a little bit in the middle. And then also, we do have in our lip this part right here. Can you feel it? This little thing in the middle? It comes out a little bit, right? It comes out a little bit. You can see it's actually a little lighter. And you can actually, there's like a little bit of a scoop here. I'm going to try and get that shape in there because that's going to help me a little bit with shading. And now I'm going to round this all out and try and make it look like the lip because I'm kind of happy with the proportions. Now this comes up and it's a little more rounded in here. And what we found yesterday was that yes, this dips this way, but I think she's got some of that lip liner on. Girls, you know what I'm talking about, lip liner, right? I hate those ladies that put the heavy lip liner on and then the lipstick wears away and the lip liner's just there. Have you seen that? Wrong. Oy. So we don't want heavy lip liner. But there's a little bit here it's more the lipstick than it is the lip. And then this comes down and goes into this little sweet part of the mouth. Not too bad. And at this point, guys, remember, I said we're not so much worried about likeness. We just want it to look like real human lips and not something from some mutant ninja thing. Okay? You can always turn your paper upside down for a check. Flatten that out a little bit, and in fact, there's going to be a little white line there. So far, so good. Now, what I'm going to do in order to get this lower lip going is I'm going to look at the negative space. Do you see this right here, where the teeth are, the opening? And I'm literally going to try and draw that and not necessarily think about the top of the lip. I'm going to draw the opening. So this much is important right here, especially when we go to fill the teeth in, okay? So I'm going to try and get that angle going. And I could do a little bit of a measurement if I wanted to see what else in my drawing, if I measure this off, is kind of the same. You know, like it looks like almost the, not the bridge of the nose, I guess. I'm not sure. It looks like from this high tip, from here to here is the same as from here to here. So I have that. Ooh, I think I might have to make this a little bit higher then, because that would be too narrow. That's pretty good, I think. Do you see? So we're looking at the opening because we want to make sure we have enough room for those teeth to go in there. And not to say that we can't adjust that later. And then yesterday we found out that the thickness of this lip was about 1.5 of the skinny part of the lip. So I have the skinny part. Here's one. Here's one. I'm going to grab another pencil. Here's one. And then about half that much again. So about down here. About down there. And that's how thick this lower lip is going to be. And I'm going to use angles. This kind of comes up a little bit. It goes in and out and comes around. There's a little dark crease here, but then this comes out and goes in. Do you see that little dark spot? And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Over here, and it comes in and down. And you can actually, turn your paper upside down if you like to check to see if it's nice and straight. Right now, it looks like her lips are ginormous. You will find that the shading is going to tone things down a little bit. And never be afraid to ask people on your table what they think. Like right here, there's this little dark spot. I think it kind of does this. It goes in. I would say if you're doing somebody's portrait for money or you're looking for a real likeness, you want to really have it look like somebody that you know, then really pay attention to all the little details and shapes. For our purposes, it just has to look like a pair of human lips. I think here I have to make this straighter. Okay. Good enough. I'm going to erase these lines for now. And she must have had fat injections or something because, look, she has no smile lines here, these things. Like my little girl that I was doing yesterday, she's got the big cheek lines here, those big things. Here, Lady Gaga doesn't have that. She must have a little work done. Little work done. Now, let's take a look at the mouth. Here, look at my mouth. I love this one. This is Sky's kind of stuff. Notice how each one of these lips, let's see if I can get it in my picture. Look, these lips are cylindrical. So toward the inside, they tend to be a little bit darker. But here now, my light, the way the light is, the bottom lip is just the opposite. And then it goes in by the chin. So you have to remember that not only are these cylinders, but this is also one big cylinder. You see how it goes around, your mouth goes in. Think of those chattering teeth. You know, you can actually see the teeth go in and come out and go in again. So that plays a role for us when we go to shade this thing. We've got to keep that in mind. So first off, let's look at ours. And it's darker on the inside. It gradually gets a little bit lighter as it comes out. If you look at this little puffy part, remember I showed you? And look closely, it's a little bit darker on this side, gets a little lighter, and then there's a little highlight on here to make it kind of stick out. But it's also round this way. What's nice about this, though, is look at the lines in the lips, all those creases. It's the same thing as when we did the logs in the wood. We're going to make our pencil strokes do that same thing. And it's very similar to the eyelashes because in the middle, look at how straight they are. But then as we go to the side, to the right, they curve to the right. To the left, they curve to the left. Same thing on the top. They're kind of straight, but as we go this way, they're going to curve this to the left and to the right. So I am going to start that. Also depends. She happens to have some lipstick on. So it's going to get dark, very dark in spots, and very light in spots because it's glossy. You want to make sure that you show those real light spots. So you can actually erase those out eventually and then go over them again, but you want to leave them. So here I want to make sure I have that little pouty part in there, that little thing. But if you're not smooth on these lips, that's okay because your strokes are going to go in the direction of those creases. Here, and I can show you on the one that I did. You see? I can work on this a little bit more. But you can see the directions that they go. And it's very dark. There's like a dark edge down below here, and it actually kind of goes in and out. Do you see that? It goes in and comes out, goes in and comes out. It's a nice sharp edge, but it's not a straight edge. It's got little ridges in it. I'm going to make this nice and dark along the edge, and then as it comes out, it gets a little lighter. Also, we're pressing to make the lines darker, but the more frequent that the lines are, they will also be darker. Just like we did with the ink things, right? The more lines you had, the darker it was. And in here, it's a little bit darker. And remembering now, I'm going to blend that outline in because the reason I see her lips is because the lips are darker than the skin. She doesn't have a real heavy lip liner on there. And if I'm doing a portrait of my buddy Hugh Jackman, he doesn't wear lip liner. Adam doesn't wear lip liner unless it's Halloween. Chris doesn't wear lip liner unless maybe you're going out at night. I don't know. And a lot of people's lips are very fair, so you have to go lightly with it. So here I'm going to kind of fill this in. So it might mean that me blending that outline in means I have to go back and make other areas lighter. Or you may want to lighten your outline that you sketched using a kneaded eraser first before you start shading. So here I'm going to leave this little white highlight. This is like really important to make that part of the lip stand out. And I'm going to say this mouth is the toughest one. It's a little darker on this side because of the lighting. But you know what? Your powers of observation are going to get so much better because you're seeing all this little detail. I'm going to color this in here, make sure that it's But see, I'm trying to keep that stroke going around, just like that piece of wood that you guys did. And I'm going to clean up this edge, although it does have a little bit of a ridgy thing going, but not that much. And in this case, that must have been a dark red or burgundy kind of lip color she's using. I'm probably going to go in there with some ebony pencil because I'm doing my squint test right now. And it's kind of all the same. So that's really important, squint test. But I am trying to get the texture going. And then here, it's just a little shaded back there. There's a little bit of a white. Because the white edge that I'm leaving is really her lip. It's where she overshot the lipstick. That goes back there. And I don't want it to look outliney. So now I'm going to take my kneaded eraser a little bit and lighten this part up. Right here. And then a little more here. And then I'm going to take my ebony pencil and darken up the spots that are really dark. Like there's a really dark spot over here. Even now here inside, her mouth is open a little bit. Do you see that? That's inside her mouth. I'm going to make that dark. And then along here, I'm going to make it dark. And along this edge, there's actually a little crease that goes up. I may actually flick a little bit and bring some of these out with the ebony pencil. This goes up in here a little bit. You see where it's really dark, but I'm going to soften that because I don't want it to look like an outline. And I'm going to soften it using strokes that follow the contour of this thing. So it'll kind of look like the creases somewhat. And it's really dark over here. And here there's a little opening where we see the back of her mouth. And then this is pretty dark in here on this side. And I'm going to shade that in. And notice here, it's darker on the right half of her mouth. So I'm going to use values that are a little bit darker, even though I'm not going to give up that dark to light to dark thing. It's just that I'm not going to use colors that are, or values that are as light as what's on the other side. You see that? I'm still getting lighter in the middle, but this side of her mouth is darker than this side, especially over here. I am going to make this a little bit darker here because the mouth does this, right? And this goes back. So Ash, I got your email. Sometimes we don't want it super smooth. We want that texture, you know? And if I want it super smooth, I'll take a photo. I'm gonna find that on PBS for you guys about the presidents. Very interesting how their portraits were. I'll play it for you while we're drawing. Hoping it's online. In here, we're gonna make it a little darker. Up in there. And then I can see it looks a little raggedy, so I'm just gonna take my eraser cap and just smooth things out a little bit here. And I could play with this all day long. Because the longer I look at it, the more I end up seeing. What do you think? And you're seeing mine like a super big gigundo. I'm going to change this. I think I made it a little too long. And there are actually little something's on there. And then there's also a little bit of shading on the outside here. And it kind of goes in. You know, here we've got that little dimply thing in here. And I want to make sure this little highlight, I'm going to erase that out of there and make sure that that thing stands out right there. How we doing? Take your eyes away from the original drawing and just worry about your drawing. Does it look like an upper lip? That's what counts. And I'm going to play with this kneaded eraser a little bit to try and get the values that I need. Takes off a little at a time, which is really, really nice. A little bit over here. A little bit over here. And don't just look at mine. Up at the board, look at the photograph. Look at the photograph. Okay, we're going to move on to the bottom lip. Bottom lip, bottom lip. Almost the same thing. Except notice here, and you can actually feel it on your own lip. If you take your tongue inside your bottom lip, you feel how smooth it is? Look, here's the smooth part. Right there. And then it starts with these liney things. But look, darker on the bottom, light in the middle, and then it gets a little bit darker here again. You could actually make this, shade this all smooth, and then later on come and pull that texture through. And that's something I may do right now. It might even go a little faster, and I'm going to get a nice flat point on my pencil so I can do that. So in this case, I'm going to make it nice and smooth first and get the values that I need. And then down below here, it's nice and dark. There's this little section right here that gets dark. And then it lightens up again here. And then it's dark on the bottom. I may show you just half for now, because I want to give you time this block to really practice these and possibly get online and look for a photo or even take a photo. Now, along this area, we want to leave that bright highlight, the white of the paper if you can. So I'm going to let that blend into the white of the paper. And then I'm going to put those wrinkles over the top. You can see it's already taken shape just by here. I want to get to this middle section. So I'm going to get the values that I need here. And in fact, I'm going to go in with my ebony pencil and get it nice and dark in here so that it really shows that that lip is getting round. It's even a little darker around where the teeth are going to come in. Here. And now I'm going to start putting this over the top. And I may even use my eraser here, eraser cap, to erase in between where those real white highlights are. So we've got this dark one in the middle. It's got a little bit. You see, and I'm breaking up that highlight now. God bless you. And now as I go to the side here, I really got to keep it curved. Ooh, not bad. Not bad, Wagner. I'm going to get... I put a little crease toward that inside where the smooth part was, so I want to change that. And I do want it to be nice and smooth in there. And then over here, there's actually, on the side here are these little wrinkles. This underneath, I think, needs to be a little darker. It's where she overshot her. We actually have it. It's like the side of the mouth does that. So do you see? So that could probably even be a faster way for you. Get the basic shading underneath, and then put that texture over the top. And you're going to have to look at your photos. You know, this one it happens to stand out quite a bit. But the photo you pick, it may not stand out that much. And I'm looking also at the shapes of these little highlights. I almost think I have too much. So I'm toning them down a little bit. And then under here, I really want this nice and dark. Squint at it. Squint, squint, squint. Even in here, I need a little more of a medium kind of a color. You can see, I guess it's where her, the lip gloss or the lipstick she's got on is darker on her lip, but as you get inside her mouth, there's no lipstick anymore. So I'm just going to lighten that a little bit. Are we seeing it? Are we seeing it? Yesterday, I found, now you guys were able to do the practice or no? I'm trying to think what day was I out. I was absent on
the half day we came back Thursday.
Yeah, with all on the white piece of paper. You guys got a chance to practice?
Thursday.
Thursday, right? That big piece of paper? Okay, good, because we're going to go back to that and work on some of those this block, because the more you practice, the better. Like I'm looking right now, I think I could make these a little rounder. And the rounder these cross-contour lines are, kind of the more voluptuous those lips are going to be. Especially, it's Lady Gaga. You know, she wants them to be really... Do you see? So for now, even if you just get half a lip done, because I'm going to give you time to finish, because I want to show you the teeth. Teeth are really important. And if you have a 4H pencil in your box, you might want to use it. Teeth are white. Some people, they're whiter than others. But we don't want to make teeth dark. And we don't want to make the separation of the teeth too big. So we have to work delicately. Look at how nice and soft these are. Yesterday I got a little scared because I didn't want her looking like a rabbit with the big buck teeth in the front. So you have to be careful. And if you look at these teeth, they're not totally the white of the paper. Compare the values in the teeth with the actual white of the paper. Do you see? There's gray to them. And they actually have 3 little white highlights on them. You can actually look at somebody on your table, and you'll see that there's little bits of gray. Our teeth aren't totally beautifully enameled. You can tell people that have caps because they're solid. Like I have one cap, and it's all different from the rest of my teeth because it's solid porcelain or whatever they make it out of. Where really our teeth are a little bit transparent. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to see where these front teeth kind of line up. And look what happens. They kind of line up with the pointy part of her lips. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to look for the pointy part of her lips. And I'm going to make 2 lines come down. And then if we look, it's a little bit below halfway. Because you can see this isn't the same distance. So it's a little bit below halfway. If you were doing an open mouth, you might even have to show the gums a little bit more. Some people have big smiles. And those gums are like little triangular pieces. You would just kind of put those in there. And they would also get shaded, kind of like the tear duct in the eye. You'd have to shade those in. And then we've got what's called the canines. These side teeth. And she's got a space in there. She needs to go to the orthodontist. And you can see they're right there. Not sure how much we can see on this side. Is it there? So we're going to fill those in. She's got a little bit of space. and it goes back, and they kind of fade away. There might be a tiny little tooth behind there if you look close. The black and white one shows that better. Same thing here. There seems to be another one, and then another one. And the teeth will look smaller as they go back. And then down the middle, we split the two front teeth. And then we're going to look below. You can actually see the separation down where it's where the lip is. I got to bring this up a little bit, I think. Now's where you can adjust the opening of the mouth. I think I see one here, and you could draw on it if you like. Here, here. Looks like there's something here and back here and here. So you want to put those in, little indications, and you can actually line them up with the front teeth. Where do they line up? This one lines up with that eye tooth. I think I'm going to bring this down a little bit. And then there's a little something, something else back here. Same thing. I'm going to line this up. It looks like it's about halfway there. And another one there. And then the teeth get rounded. There's a little round edge to them. And geez, I didn't notice that space yesterday. She's got a space right there. And then this angles. And when we shade it, we'll be able to make it as vague as it is in the picture. Because you can see there's not much shading in between the teeth. But we do want to let them know that it's there. And now I'm going to use the 4H to shade these in, guys. And you can see that it's a little bit darker where the lip goes over. I'm not pressing hard at all. We still need to remember that these are white teeth. So they're darker here. There's that little dark space here. There's some shading here because, right, a tooth wraps around. It goes back. It's three-dimensional. And then there's shading here and here because there are those three little pockets of highlight. Very, very subtle. Very, very subtle, but it's there. I will probably actually hit this with a kneaded eraser to make it even more subtle. And the reason that we see the bottom of the tooth is because of the shadow that's underneath the tooth down here, underneath. So I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. I'm going to hit this. Very subtle on the teeth. Here it's shaded behind. This is all, this under tooth has the shading. And it makes sense, right? Because it's behind the front teeth. It has to be darker. Even here, she's got a little bit of a gap here. And look, this eye tooth, the whole thing is kind of shaded. It's under the lips, so you just see a little bit of the edge showing. This all back here, I barely see what's going on back here. Even here, this is darker. It gets a little bit lighter. But these are kind of basic shapes that get filled in. There's a little bit of a highlight on that tooth, but it's dark back here now. And that helps us to hide a multitude of sins. I might have even given her an extra tooth. Don't tell anybody. Here we've got some shading underneath. She's got a nice overbite, so we get some nice shading going. My dentist has taught me well. And then the bottom teeth get lighter as they come down. Do you see that? I'm going to try and erase my little marks there. Just going to soften those. Just to kind of show a separation of the teeth a little bit. But this is all shaded underneath. And then you can actually use your eraser as a drawing tool. I'm going to erase out some of this lightness on the bottom. But you can see it blends together a lot in this photo. you don't really see the separation of the bottom teeth all that much. That's my drawing here. If I take those out, it's just a little bit of an indication. More shading, more so there. And then back on the other side again. Do you see that? But do you see how closely I look at these things? I'm looking at the shape that the shading takes on. And I kind of draw that shape from the inside out. Wow, I didn't realize she had that gap there. I didn't give her that gap yesterday. I gave her one too many teeth here, I think. That's okay. Are we seeing that? So that you can see the difference. And this can be a little more of a separation here. But all this shading, I see that white tooth because of the shading behind it. And then there's just a little bit on the top. There shouldn't be any outlines. You're fading those outlines out. Okay, look very, very subtle on the teeth. Because that could really look like cavities or, oh God. The last thing I want to show you really quick is because we want to tie this into the face, right? We don't just want it sitting out here like an island. If you look, there's this thing, right? So now you can actually look at both the nose and the mouth, and you can see where the shading is and how it ties in. So here I'm going to look at what this shape is. And you can see where the two high parts, the little ridges are. Those are the lightest. So I'm going to come in right now, and those are the little ridges right here, right? So I'm going to shade this in. I'm going to try and find the flat part of my pencil and put that little shape in. It kind of goes up and tapers down here. And then if I look at the nose, it's dark underneath the nose, and that's why we actually see the bottom part of the nose. And I'm going to let this fade out along that upper ridge. Fade, 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 fade. And then it's probably going to come down again because the mouth does this, like a cylinder. And it's going to get a little darker again. And I'm going to look and see what's going on by the nose. It gets a little darker under the nose. Not much, though. There's a little shadow there. So you have to think about the contours of the face, right? Just like the cheek, right, with the nose, this is going to fade out to become the cheek. The eye socket, this is going to fade out to become the cheek. You can see on this woman, look. This fades out and becomes the cheek. This fades out, look, and becomes actually the chin on the bottom here. It gets darker and gets lighter again. But it depends also on your lighting. Here's the wackadoodle dude. Look, it fades out and becomes the cheek. Look, this actually has this nice shape in here. It makes it easy for us. We can look for the shape and then just soften that edge because that's a big gaping hole in there. But look, it gets lighter, and then as the face goes back, it gets a little darker again. So you just have to pay attention to how much it gets darker. Look, the side of his brow here, here's the eye socket, it gets lighter, and then the side of the face, it gets darker again. Even the brow at the top, look, darker inside, and then it gets lighter again. Do you see that? So you're following the contour of your face. Darkest part is in the eye socket. Darkest part is in the eye socket. And then it's softened. Even this dramatic a difference between the light, it's still not a harsh line. It's still soft. Okay? Even here, it's soft. It's soft. Now, I'm not going to go into the ears because look at all these pictures I found. And there's not an ear to be found. None. If you get lucky, you may find a picture like Hugh Jackman up there. You can just see his earlobe showing. Right? It's rare that you will have to do a whole side view of an ear, unless you're doing somebody's profile. Or if I was doing Abby from straight, I'm seeing the front of her ear. So you just need to remember that these are cylinders. We look for angles on the ear, and then we look at angles for these shapes, but we're looking at the shape that the shading takes on and let it fade out. It's almost like I'm saying the same things over and over again so it stays in your head. You look for the shaded shapes and let them fade out. Shaded shapes that fade out. So when one shaded shape here fades out, and then this shaded shape fades out, look, I end up with this cylinder there. It will work itself out. Questions? Now, what I want you to do for the rest of the block is